Hello everyone, Jorge Mora here with the Mora Realty Group, and in today's video we're going to talk about the steps that are required in order for the property to come to market, hit the open market, and see it all the way to closing. So there's a lot of steps that are required in order to get to that part of the transaction, and in this video we're going to go ahead and discuss them. So the first thing that we're going to do as the seller is, if the property is vacant, or we may decide to stage the property. What staging means is that we're going to hire a company that's going to come and set up the decor. This works especially well on properties that have unique spaces, that somebody with a talented eye could come in and give a visual of what could be occupying in this space. So what we're going to do is we're going to hire a company. They're going to come in, see the layout of the property, see how the light comes in, and match what works best, so that way when the buyer actually comes into the home, they can go ahead and visualize themselves living there and see how the flow would go, instead of just seeing a blank canvas and people are just like, why is this closet like this, or why is this dining room in this manner? So a staging company will really assist with that. Now, this doesn't always occur, because sometimes people are living in their home and they have really good decor already. So in this situation, what we would do is we would really want to have the seller start removing items that they're no longer going to be using, because you don't want to have a buyer walk into a property and they get stuck at looking at where you've been on vacation, anything that's unusual that you may have of decor. You want them to really just be able to flow through the house and see the property as if they were the ones living there. So we encourage sellers to start taking pictures that off the walls, give more wall space, enter more lights, do things that are going to be encouraging to the buyer, to where they can visualize themselves coming into the property and seeing themselves living in the home. Okay, so that's going to be our first step. We're going to go ahead and stage the property. The next part that we're going to do is we're going to get the property ready to show. Now, what that means is we're going to go ahead and get a deep cleaning on the property. We're going to let the property shine. And a question that I get from sellers is like, well, I have a cleaning person, or I want to do it myself. Yes, those people are very good at doing that. When you hire a professional company, they're going to come in, especially ones that are dedicated to getting homes ready for sale, is they're going to start clearing out things that, as an everyday person, everyday life, we may not think that is important. So they're going to get this house in the best possible condition for when buyers come in, they see the property, they can fall in love with the home. It shows well in the pictures, and that's really what's going to be launching the first part of the marketing to getting the property sold. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get that prepared for show. The next step that we're going to do is, once we are on the open market, so you're going to have your marketing of your flyers, you're going to tell the neighbors about it, you're going to let the brokers, the top brokers in the area know about this wonderful property. You're going to get everything up and ready with your professional photography, maybe your drone footage. You're going to get all of these things ready, so as buyers start coming in and looking at the home, and once they see themselves, visualize themselves in the home, they're going to go ahead and submit an offer, and that offer, at the time, the listing agent will sit down with the seller to go ahead and review the pros and cons to the offer. So they'll go ahead, and if there's multiple offers, then they'll review what the pros and cons for each additional offer. That way they can just go ahead and send a counter offer to the top offers that are available, and make sure that you get the best possible buyer. That doesn't always necessarily mean price, because even if a buyer comes in with a little bit higher price, but maybe their loan is way difficult to do, or if they're asking for a lot of concessions or a lot of discounted points, then that may affect their value. It's not just so much at what the highest price is. You really have to go in and separate what they're offering to what the seller's going to net. And that's very important, that your listing agent will go ahead and sit down with you. They'll do the work, present the offers to you, and that way the seller can decide what's best for them with the time frame, the offer, the purchase price, and if they're going to offer any closing costs, things of that nature. Your listing agent will help you to go ahead and get through that. Okay, then what we're going to do is when the top offers that come in, your listing agent is going to go ahead and with the seller and organize what we're going to counter. So are we going to counter on price? Are we going to counter on, maybe we're going to offer less closing costs? Maybe you're going to offer a better time frame or shorten your contingencies for where the buyer can either do their inspections or get loan approval. That way you can go ahead and be confident that once you accept an offer, it really is the best offer that you can get for the home. And that way you can assure if whether you're going to cash out or whether you're going to buy a new property, that you have solidified a high quality buyer. So the counter offer is going to be created. That'll be sent back to the selling agents, the buyer's agents in this case, and the buyer's agents will go ahead and determine if the criteria that the listing agent and the seller have come up with fits what they're willing to do. Maybe the time frame is too short for them, or maybe they're not willing to come up to the price that's needed to capture the property, or maybe they need all of those closing costs and they need to back out of the transaction. So, and this part is going to be, all of this is going to be happening in the counter stage part. Once all of that has been settled, then the seller will come back, and the buyer that fits that criteria the best, the seller will go ahead and move forward in opening escrow. Now, this is a question. Escrow is a word that's used very frequently in real estate. We're opening escrow, we're in escrow. But then I get people that ask me, well, what is escrow? Escrow is easily defined as an intermediary company that it has a buyer and they have no allegiance to the seller. Their only allegiance is to what's on the contract. So they're going to go ahead and review the contract from the initial offer to any counter offers that were created to anything that's said in writing that was signed by both buyer and seller. The escrow company is going to go ahead and take that information, and they're basically going to be the referee in the transaction. So escrow is going to take whatever the buyer said that they were going to say, they were going to put in initial deposit of $15,000. They're going to go ahead and make sure that they got that to hold into escrow, so that way the seller knows that the buyer is serious and is able to take their property off the market. If any repairs or any adjustments that need to be taken place that both parties agreed to do, escrow is going to ensure that all of those things are done prior to closing the transaction. That way it's not like, well, the seller got to choose the escrow company and the escrow company works for them, or the buyer feels, oh no, well, I want to go ahead and take it back, I want to change my mind and do this. Escrow is going to make sure that whatever was agreed to be done is going to be completed by the rightful party. So it's very important to choose a very good escrow company, because an escrow company is going to keep everybody moving forward, moving in the right direction, but also in a timely fashion. So that choosing an escrow company is traditionally done by the seller, as is the title company. Which title, what they would do is an insurance. What they're going to take is whatever, if the seller is selling a property and the new buyer comes in, the title is going to research the property, make sure that there aren't any tax liens or any child support liens, any mechanical liens, any things that are going to come back later to haunt that are attached to the property that the new buyer would get stuck with. It's a title insurance, so when the buyer moves into the home, they know that they have a clean slate of whatever, just their mortgage and them moving forward with the property. So title works hand in hand with escrow in order to let escrow know is that all of these mechanic liens or any type of lien that's on the property gets paid off prior to the close of escrow. So it's very important to have a high quality escrow company, and it's very important to have a high quality title company. So both of those, like I mentioned, are traditionally selected by the seller and the seller's right to choose. Now both seller and buyer pay their own fees on that, and that goes into the closing costs, but it's something that both parties are going to benefit from. So it's very important to do that. So let's go ahead and move on. Now once the buyer has submitted their earnest money deposit or their EMD, escrow is officially opened. So what that happens is that's when the clock officially starts. So what's going to happen is you're going to have inspection periods, you're going to have deadlines, you're going to have payoffs, you're going to have all of these things taken care of prior to the close of escrow. And once that initial deposit has been made, then the buyer will select a physical inspector. A physical inspector is an individual that will come to the property. They're going to go ahead and do more than just the visual inspection that the buyer and the agent did. They're going to go ahead and get in the crawl space. They're going to go ahead and go in the attic. They're going to test the AC. They're going to test the dishwasher. They're going to make sure that the water pressure is where it needs to be. They're going to inspect the plumbing. They'll inspect the foundation. For some companies offer additional sewer lines. They're going to check the foundation. They're going to check the roof. So this is a very important time in the transaction. And with any inspector, this individual is paid to find what's wrong with the property. And it doesn't matter if the house is 100 years old or if the home is brand new. The physical inspector is going to find something that they will call out. So what I like to share with my clients is every home has its situation. What we're looking for as a buyer's agent, if I'm representing the buyer, what I'm communicating to my client is we're looking for items that are big ticket items to repair, whether it be the roof, the plumbing, the foundation, and the electrical. Those 4 items are very important because as a buyer, you're putting in usually a large down payment down, and you're coming in with funds that you're going to be depleting maybe your savings or your 401k or things of that nature. So in order to tack on another roof repair or foundation cost or electrical or plumbing, that can just really wipe out a buyer and really give them a bad experience of home ownership. And if something is loose on the property, if it's maybe like the doorknob is loose, or maybe this is not painted, or maybe the doorknob or the handles on the cabinets aren't to the liking. Those are minor items. Those are items that can be addressed with time and to accommodate the buyer's lifestyle. So those were not necessarily deal breakers in order to move on with the property. But you want to make sure that you have your physical inspection done, and you want to make sure that you get the roof, foundation, electrical, and plumbing taken care of. So that's a very big one right there. Then we're going to go ahead and encourage the seller to continue packing. You want to start packing items that you're not going to start that you don't use on a regular basis. Start limiting the number of space, because as we're going now we're into the second part of the transaction, where we're going to have to start getting ready to move. Once the buyer's loan has been approved, we're really going to want to put the pedal to the metal on packing, because we're going to be close to closing. So we're going to want to start packing. The termite inspection is something that would be done if the buyer requests to get a termite inspection done, and then a termite inspector will come out and check what needs to be done immediately or what is deferred maintenance. They break up the report into 2 different sections of that. Now, with any repairs that need to be done at the moment, that would be in the repairs request, along with the physical inspection that they got back. They're gonna go ahead and get all of the list of the items that they were requesting from the seller to fix prior to moving forward with the property. So that a termite inspection will be done also at the time of the physical inspection or in and around that time. Now we get to the repairs. The repairs, as we mentioned, is the physical inspector and the termite are gonna find something. That's their job, to make sure that they call anything that is less than 100% on the home. So as the property gets its inspection, the buyer's agent will sit down with the buyer and they'll both review the inspection reports. At that moment, they will come up with what is items that they would like for the seller to address prior to closing escrow. So in that, they'll submit their repairs request and send it over to the listing agent, which the listing agent will then sit down with the seller to go over their options. And the seller has 3 options at that time. They can take the report and say, you know what, all of these things look like they're pretty valid requests. We're gonna go ahead and fix all of these ourselves. And that way the buyer can just move in with them. The seller can look at the items and say, you know what, we're not gonna fix any of these. And you know, that is their option as well. And the third option is they could select items that they will repair or give a credit to the buyer for that buyer to repair it. So instead of maybe a broken sink, and they would just say, well, we'll offer you $1,000 or so for you to fix the sink, and that way when the buyer comes in, they can pick whatever sink they want, or if they just want to get the model that they would select, it would be up to the buyer to go ahead and do the repair at that point. So as I mentioned, the seller will have 3 options at that point. They can either fix it, not fix it, or offer a credit for the new buyer to fix it. They'll go ahead and submit their answer. The listing agent will then send it back to the buyer's agent, which the buyer's agent will sit down with their buyer and go over the response the seller will do. And at that point, the buyer will decide, okay, that's good, we can go ahead and move forward, or I'm not okay with that, and we want to send a counter to the repairs, and it would just get worked out in that way. Once everything is cleared out and both parties are satisfied with the repairs that need to be done with the property, then we'll go ahead and move to the next stage, which would be the disclosures. Now the disclosures can come at the beginning of escrow. This is or they can come in the early part of the transaction. What the disclosures are is the seller is more than likely lived in the home, and they know the ins and outs of the home. They know if they've constructed without a permit. They know if there was a fire on the property. They know if there was a death on the property. They know these different questions because they've lived in the home. So it's mandatory for them to disclose this to the buyer, that the buyer is aware of what may or may have not happened in the home, and that way the buyer can move forward and say, okay, I'm okay with that, and I can go ahead and move forward into the property. So the disclosures will be filled out by the seller. The listing agent will then send it to the buyer's agent, who will discuss it with the buyer's agent. Once both parties are okay with what's been going on with the property, they'll go ahead and release the disclosures from the contingencies. Now, the appraisal is the next part that gets taken care of. So after the physical inspection is done and after the repairs have been requested and sorted out, what I like to do is, like, now it's time to go ahead and order our appraisal. The appraisal is a bank is gonna send, or the lender is gonna send, a third-party individual to make sure that whatever is being offered on the property is a value that they can go ahead and get credit for. So you're not gonna pay more than what the house is worth. The bank is not gonna pay you more than what the home is worth. They're gonna go ahead and get an individual to go ahead and verify and confirm that whatever the sales price is justified to the bank and to the buyer. This gives the buyer an assurance as well that what they're offering for the property is fair market value. Now, is the bank is going to ensure that for themselves, because even when if a home is $1 million and a buyer is putting 20% down, that's $200,000, which is a lot of money to put down. However, the bank is putting $800,000 down in order to go ahead and capture this property and give the new buyer a loan. So the bank is going to ensure that the house is worth what is being offered. That way, the buyer can go ahead and obtain the new loan, and it can go ahead and start living in the home. So an appraisal will be done at that point. After the appraisal has come back and the value shows that it's been verified by this appraiser, the bank is going to go and say, okay, Mr. Buyer, you've satisfied all of your criteria as far as that we asked for. We're going to go ahead and approve the loan. So what they're going to do is now the loan has been approved, and the buyer is just going to have to get the last little things together that before they go ahead and sign loan documents. So at this point, a listing agent will more than likely send over a contingency removal. A contingency removal form is that it's confirming that the buyer is no longer going to back out of the transaction, because like now they've done their inspections to confirm, they've done their repairs requests which have been addressed, they've also done the appraisal to confirm that the value of the home is there, and now the seller is saying, okay, now that you've satisfied all of your concerns, go ahead and remove your contingencies and let us know that we are moving forward 100%. Once that happens, this is a big day, because if the buyer after this moment decides that they do no longer want the property or something else occurs, the seller more than likely will be able to retain the buyer's deposit through either mediation or just by satisfactory and through escrow. So this is a very important moment for both the seller and the buyer in the transaction, because now it's letting us know that we are moving forward 100%. So that's a very key part of the transaction. Next, after the loan has been approved and the contingencies have been removed, the lender's going to go ahead and submit the loan documents. This is the documents that itemize everything that's the buyer is going to pay, how much their interest rate is, how long is their loan, how many years they're going to have the loan for, how much they're paying for the loan, or how much they're paying for the home, what they're putting down. It's going to itemize all of these documents, and the escrow will coordinate a time for the buyer to sit down and sign those loan documents to confirm that everything that they were told is what is going to be said. Because the last thing that you would want to have happen is that a buyer is told one interest rate and they get to the signing table and it's a completely different interest rate, completely different payment. That can blow things up very quickly, and so they're going to go ahead and ensure that the loan documents get taken care of and they get signed. So that's a big part. Now, if there was a termite inspection and they did need to fumigate the property or tent the property in a lot of cases, this is where this would get done. So the sellers would need to vacate the property for a couple of days. The termite company is going to come in and tent the property, make sure that any termites, pests, rodents, anything of that nature is eliminated from the property. And that way when the buyer walks into the new home, that they're pest free. So that's an important part as well. Now, once these items have gotten taken care of, the seller's going to want to go ahead and finish packing, because now once the loan docs have been signed, they get sent back to the lender and to escrow to make sure that everything was signed properly and that everything is okay. They get submitted to the lender, the institution that's loaning the money, and that lender is going to go ahead and send a wire into escrow or fund the loan. At this time, they're going to go ahead and escrow will have the money to make all the payoff that needs to be done for if there was a mortgage that was on the property prior, any liens that may have not been on the property, any concessions or repairs or credits or anything that's finalized. They're going to subtract it from those funds. And then what will happen is the bank will be ready to submit that that money. And while this is occurring, the buyer's agent is going to want to come back with their client to do a final walkthrough on the property. They're going to go ahead and make sure that if there was any repairs that were requested and agreed to, they're going to come back and make sure that those repairs were done. Or in some cases, make sure that nobody has come in and vandalized the home. Make sure that what they remember of the home is what they're going to be getting. And they're going to do this right after loan documents and prior to funding and recording. So this is an important part as well. Now, as the seller, as we get closer, you're going to want to, at this point, you'll have a target close date. So you're going to want to go ahead and contact the utility companies in order to let them know that we're moving out to go and do a final reading on the utilities. That way the new buyer can go ahead and put the utilities in their name. That's going to be an important thing to do. And after all of that is said and done, escrow is going to go ahead and get title to record the grant deed. Title will take it to the recorder's office. They submit the deed paperwork, and they get a stamp. And then later that day, the escrow will get confirmation or closing or recording that the property has now transferred from seller to the new buyer. And that's when the escrow is officially closed. So at that time, the seller will receive their proceeds. The buyer will get notified. Usually, it takes a couple of days for the seller to move out. Customary, it's about 3 days that they would close, because they more than likely need those funds in order to hire the moving company or to go and move into their other place. But this will all be determined in the offer that the buyer submitted and any counter offers that were taken care of. So that's an important thing to keep an eye on as well. But once everything is, once the days have passed out, the seller will move out. The listing agent will leave the keys and any instructions that the seller had for the new buyer, and the new buyer will then get their keys and move on and enjoy their new home. And that completes the sale process. So hopefully this video will allow you to get some insight on what's to come, gives you a layout of the process that's involved in selling a home and in buying a home, and that way you can be comfortable in moving forward. And if you're a seller that would like to get an evaluation of what your home is worth, the Mora Realty Group, we offer a no cost, no obligation consultation. We'll come in, we'll sit down with you, give you a reading of what the market is willing to pay for the property, and the seller can then decide if that makes sense for them to move forward with putting the property up for sale and then moving on. Or if you're a buyer that's looking to get programs that are available to first-time buyers or business owners or people that have ITINs, the Mora Realty Group, we work with the top lenders that have a variety of programs that are available to buyers, and this will help you to make the decision to see if it's worth making a purchase, how much your payments would be, how much money you would need to come down with. And this also is a no cost, no obligation consultation that we offer. So if you need to reach us, you can reach us directly at the MoraRealtyGroup.com or call us directly at 562-270-5557. Again, the number is 562-270-5557. Thank you so very much. And remember, the Mora Realty Group, we're here to assist. Y hablamos español. Thank you so much.